You're listening to the Chris the Freelancer podcast.
Hello and welcome to the Chris the Freelancer podcast. This is the podcast all about location independence, time freedom, and living life on your terms. Each week we interview a new guest on the show, and today I'm sitting down with Raphaels, a young nomad who's following his passion for travel by building a startup that helps young people make the best choices about what activities to do on their gap years. In this week's episode, Rap and I talk about his pursuit of location independence, as well as the experience of freelancing while working on his own startup, Années Sabbatiques. So, sit back, relax, and enjoy episode 9 with Raphaels.
For show notes and more, visit christhefreelancer.com.
All right, hi guys, I'm here with Raphael. We're on his rooftop. He's got a pretty interesting pad here in Chiang Mai. It's like, how many levels is it?
I think it's got 4 levels, and we're on the 4th level at the rooftop. Yeah,
it's a pretty cool space in Niman area here in Chiang Mai, and it's a good event space as well, right? Like you had us all over for a party. Yeah, house party.
Rooftop drinks, how I like to call them. So I organize these every 2 weeks. I've started doing this like when I was in Saigon, and I'm continuing to do it here in Chiang Mai. It's just really good to have every 2 weeks like all the people I know who are in our space like at one place, and everybody meets each other and everybody loves it. So I just continue doing it.
Awesome. Well, you've got a similar story, I guess, in terms of, discovering the location-independent movement and wanting to become a part of it. But you're further along than me. You've said you've been about a year and a half now since you left Belgium?
Yeah, so it's been a year and a half since I've been fully dedicating myself to it. Yeah. It's been a year and a half since I left the job, but I still worked a little bit back home, starting to, prepare.
Yeah. So I guess, on that scale, I guess I've been doing it for the same time because I made the switch like about March last year that I was gonna go into this stuff, and then left Australia in January. But I like to go start at the beginning of the story. At which point did you discover the idea of being location independence, and what was it that got you really excited about it?
The thing is, just to give you a little bit of an idea of where I was, mentally at the moment in which I start hearing about this concept of location independence. I'd done my gap year in Australia, actually, when I was 18, and during that year, I took English classes, and I did some volunteering, and I worked in Australia to fund and finance my travels. And it was a fantastic year for me. It was really life-changing. I realized I was loving learning languages. I was loving being in an environment that changes all the time. I was loving meeting new people all the time, being in contact with nature, and generally speaking, these are things you see when you think of travel. Yeah. So I realized that I had this desire to travel and changing environments all the time. And then after that, I went to university for 3 years, and when I was at university, I felt like I had to make a choice between going back to traveling, after I would finish, and making basically a move towards a little bit more of the career path. And I felt that either my plan at that time was okay, I'm gonna finish my studies. I'll go spend a year, take another working holiday visa in Canada this time. And I would probably pick fruits again, or work in ski resorts, or basically not do the kind of jobs you want to be doing when you finished a degree of business and communications. Yeah. And so I felt all right, I'll do this for a year, and I'll just follow my drive for travel. And then after that, only I'll go and follow the other thing I really want to do is work in the areas of marketing, communications, and business. And so basically, these two objectives were completely at the opposite of each other. And I had a problem with that. But that was the best solution I had at that time. And basically, my now ex-girlfriend, and I'm so happy she did that, she sent me that podcast. It was actually The Love Affair Travel by Ian Robinson. And it was the episodes by Johnny Ward. I remember quite clearly. And that's the first time I heard someone's story of, basically someone who's working on a computer, doing business entrepreneurship, marketing related things, and at the same time was moving around. I was like just so amazed. I was like, oh my God, this is the ticket. This is amazing. I want to do that. And since, it's been, that was definitely like the moment where I just realized that, I have to go more into it, and I start getting, like, as you're saying, also like obsessed with it. That's where all the research started, basically.
Yeah, I had a similar thing. When I finished my trip, it was like a trip to the US. It was like 6 months study abroad. Caught the travel bug, came home, was almost finished university, and I wanted to focus on my career and kind of build a career. But at the same time, travel was the most fulfilling thing for me. Yeah. And I was just like, okay, I'll finish university, I'll do the Canada thing, I'll do the...
You also wanted to do a working holiday in Canada?
Yeah, but the problem was the work itself. Like, I really wanted to work on my career, but I wanted to meet new people and be in a different environment as well. So yeah, when I saw that article from Peter Levels about 12 subs in 12 months, that's when it clicked for me, and realized I could do both, which was perfect. So after you it clicked for you and had that moment, what was your steps after that?
It's not like I became a full-time researcher of location independence, but I was like, I think in that week, I probably listened to all the episodes of that podcast, probably like in one go. And I think it just started to research a little bit, everything that was on that topic. I think I've heard of Natalie Sisson and about her book, about the audiobook, and I just kind of like, I think it took me still like a few months before I decided. I was like, wow, this is it. Because the first episodes I heard weren't, I wasn't quite understanding exactly all the different possibilities and stuff. So, but after a few episodes, I was like, I could start hearing some stories that I could relate to. I'd be like, yeah, I could do that. I bought that book from Natalie Sisson. That was kind of a step-by-step approach of how you can work remotely. And she was really focused on the freelancing, on how you can become actually like a freelancer. And so that's how I started to make my first moves, being like, all right, this is what I'm going to have to do.
Okay. And did you have a clear idea of the career you wanted to go down? You already had, I guess, you'd studied the business and communications at university. Was that, you already had a clear idea of what you wanted to do after university, and you were just fitting that into the location independent model, or you had to kind of think of what careers you could do within that?
No, I think in that way I was kind of lucky, because I more or less knew I wanted to work in the areas of marketing communications. I knew that at some point I would want to have my own business, and therefore I would have to start by working for someone else and working in business, in a business. It would have to be like an NGO or a startup or a big company. I think the big company option was like already understood that this was probably not exactly for me, but I knew I wanted to work for a business, an organization, and my strategy to get my foot into the door was to work in something I knew I was already decent at, and something I'd done a little bit before was like marketing communications. Then I thought, okay, well, I need to have a skill that I can bring to someone else. And well, she was giving that diagram, which I think was very good. She was saying like, hey, if you want to figure out what you have to do, try to find the common denominator, between these three. So there's like something you're really passionate about, something you really like, something that you're good at, and something that people want you for. So something that's demanded and something that can bring value, right? And then I figured like that this whole, like from this, like social media and marketing and communications would be a good deal for me. So I didn't have to do like a big compromise, in order to do what I wanted to do. It was kind of like really like merging already what I had in mind with like the new model of location independence, right?
Yeah.
And I'm not doing exactly what I wanted to do back then, but that's still good. I mean, I'm still happy I went through that.
How's it different now?
The activity is just different. So the kind of skills are similar, but what I'm offering to the people I work with is different.
Okay, so you're talking about social media back then, and then now you do kind of other parts of the marketing mix?
It's really that there's some of that, but it's so back then I figured, all right, if I want to offer my skills to someone, I always knew that's something I knew for sure also, is that the kind of activity I want to do, I want to, help young people to develop personally through travel and experiences abroad. And I knew that whatever I would do, that was, whatever business I would work with, whatever kind of clients I would get, they would have to fit that. Their business would have to be, aligned with my personal mission I gave to myself. Okay. And at that time, what I wanted to do was to freelance and offer social media marketing services to gap year agencies.
Oh, okay. And wow, you really niched down.
Yeah, I niched down.
And that worked for you?
And I basically worked on that for probably like 9 months or so. I even I even entered like a business competition, and it was an innovative business competition. The guys were like, "Oh, this is totally not innovative. Get out of here!" And I was like, "I don't care. This is gonna work." And I'm sure it could have worked, to be honest. It's just that after 9 months of working on this, I realized that this was basically, I was too dependent on my clients. That would be those gap year agencies. So one thing that's very important for me is to take time off. It's not something I take a lot at this point in time, but it's something I know I want. So I want to take 3 times per year, 1 month off. And I know that's something they would not accept, because if you're providing a service like social media marketing, it's and you decide to leave 3 months out of the year and not be there, people are going to dislike it. And in that situation, I was very dependent on my clients. So I decided, I was like, oh my God, this is not very passive money, as some people, of a passive income, as some people refer it to, meaning that the day I stopped working with them, I'm not really generating an income for myself anymore. And the revenues would really go down. And so that's when I realized, I was like, no, this is not the right business model for me. I completely have to change. And that's what I did. So.
Okay. And you mentioned, I guess, that you wanted to work with companies that shared, I guess, your mission for, inspiring people and the gap year thing.
Yeah.
What do you think of that? Do you think it's more important to work in an organization that shares your mission, or that you're working in an area that's highly aligned with your skills and I guess your career? I guess.
You should do both.
Yeah, I guess if there was a company that offered a role that was highly aligned with your mission, but didn't really match up with what you wanted to do as a career, but then there was say Expedia or something like travel industry, but digital marketing, and that's going to be great for your career. Do you think? I'm just curious. Do you think mission? How important is mission? And because that's something a lot of people probably don't think about is, trying to find an employer with a similar mission.
Yeah, I think the level of importance is different to everyone, right? Mm-hmm. And it's probably a lot more important for me than for most people. And yeah, to answer your first question, I think you should at least try very hard to find a company that fits your mission and your skill set, and that they need your skill set. Yeah. But yeah, I think it's very important, man. If a lot of things aren't quite right in our world today, it's probably because people don't think about the mission so much.
Yeah.
I think if we're all really thinking super heavily on what's the real value, what is the real impact, the economical, environmental, and social impact of the activity I'm having right now, what's the actual impact? And if people would really care about this and they would only go for projects that are sustainable in that way, I think we would live in a much better world for sure.
Yeah.
So I think it's very important.
And at the same time, we'll get into your business as we go along, but I guess it's really important for you, as with the business you do now, to have that experience with other companies who share a similar mission. So you have that experience of delivering that similar kind of service, I guess.
The work I did for that business didn't even go as far, because I was still at university almost. I mean, when I dropped the idea, I hadn't started really approaching clients.
Okay, which idea is this?
So sorry, this is the first business idea I had, which is to help those companies with social media marketing services. I actually never even made it that far to pitch anything to anyone.
Okay, so it was a service-based business.
It was a service-based business, and what I did, and I'm so happy I did that, because it ended up helping me with what I'm doing today. I figured, I was like, okay, I'm going to have a service-based business, and but there's only so much you can learn by yourself, and there's only so much you can learn from university, and so much you can learn from podcasts. So I decided I would go and have a really hands-on experience in the workplace to train myself in a way. And so I decided to go work for what is probably one of the leading social media marketing agency in Europe, and I worked for them for 6 months, knowing I was going to get out.
Yeah.
So I went there just fully to learn as much as I could, and actually I had such a great time. I could have seen myself continue, because I was in a good situation. I was enjoying the work. I was working a lot, but I was enjoying the work. I was enjoying the environment. I was working with amazing people. They even offered me so we were working in Brussels, but they offered me a position potentially in London, and I turned that down because I knew that deep inside the best thing for me was to do the location independent thing. It was a hard decision, but I was like, no, all right, let that position go and just go do the location independent thing.
And the skills you built along the way, did you get skills, have practical skills after you came out of university, or did you study, I guess, self-teach yourself a lot of concepts, or did you have a good graduate job that you kind of learnt the stuff that you know now? How did you build your skills?
It depends which skills, I guess. Do you have
the marketing skills that allowed you to freelance in order to be location independent?
Yeah, those skills I really got whilst working for this agency, for sure. I mean, I'd done a lot of studying. I kind of call it passive studying, because it's just I listen to a lot of podcasts.
Yeah.
I wish I could see the volume of books it would represent, seeing all the podcasts I listen to. It would be 2 full libraries, probably.
Yeah.
Big libraries. But then I listened to a lot of theory and conversations between people about what you should do as a marketer in order to grow an audience, all this stuff. But yeah, all the really technical stuff and most of the things I really use, I think I've really learned it there at the agency.
And how did you actually transition into location independence? You quit this job after 6 months, correct? And then, I guess, did you have a network of people that you freelance with, or you did the online freelancing thing, or how'd you?
So the way it went is that I just realized that, all right, I have to change the idea. This is not going to be the perfect model for me. So I have to change. And at the same time, I quit the job. And
this was the social media for the gap year programs?
Exactly, yeah. Okay. I was like, all right, this is not sustainable, because I'm going to be very dependent on my clients, and this is not something I want for myself. Mm-hmm. If all my income come from just a few businesses, I'm going to be very dependent on them, right? Yeah. Because you're just gonna have to please them, all the time, and if you don't, and they're just gonna say, all right, we don't want to work with you anymore because of this and that, and then all of a sudden, then you're like, all right, I don't know, a fifth of your income is gone, or maybe half of it is gone, and I was like, no, this is not something I want. I don't want to be the slave of my clients, and so basically, I decided to work on another concept, which is what I'm spending right now 75% of my time working on, which is Années Sabbatiques, which is, as you might have figured out, in French. And it means it's the domain name is annesabbatiques.com, which means gapyears.com. But I started working on the project, and then I just assumed that it was gonna start really fast, and I could. And I started really from scratch. I was I left the job, and I started brainstorming, and then I was all right, this is what we can do, and then I started so it's not I left the job and it was already project semi-launched. We would get any revenues, no, none of that stuff. Oh, okay. And I just imagined that it would go so fast. I just completely underestimated how much time, how technically difficult what I wanted to do was, and I underestimated how long it would take to build an audience. and how long it would take to build, like also, a large list of clients. And so I started working on this thing. And then it took me probably like 2 months, and then I realized I was like, all right, I think I'm gonna still have to do some freelancing jobs, because there's no way I can just rely on this little bit of money I have.
You built up some savings before you left?
Yeah, I had some savings as well, but definitely not enough that I could sustain myself moving around until we would get profitable. So that's where I realized I was like, okay, this is a great idea, and this is really what I want to work on, but I'm still gonna have to compromise and still do some freelancing.
Yeah.
Because it's gonna take a long time.
Okay, wow. So I didn't actually know that you kind of pinned your, I guess, hopes on building a location-independent business, and that was, I guess, you were thinking that was going to be your rock, your income, but then expanded into the freelancing.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
And I am still doing freelancing now.
Yeah.
And I could make like 3 times more money doing the freelancing. Seriously, like I know.
Of course.
I could. Yeah, I know I could, but it's just like there's like a perfect fit of skill sets, business model, industry, and mission I have for myself in that business that I'm working right now. That's just like I know this is what I have to do, and I feel stronger about this. I feel stronger about the fact that I really found something great to work on, and I realized that when I compare myself to people in our community, because I think a lot of people aren't fully happy. A lot of people, for example, I'm not going to put any names or anything, but a lot of people do affiliate marketing, they do drop shipping, they do Amazon FBA, and yes, they're making money, but deep inside, and they say it, they know they want to ultimately work on something else.
Yeah.
They're just like they do these things, they sell these products they maybe don't like fully believe in, but that's just a way of like making the whole location independent thing sustainable. And I think I'm doing the same thing to some extent with the freelancing, right?
Yeah.
I'm making those sacrifices in order to be location independent, right?
Yeah.
But I know that at least I've hit something that I know fits really well and would work really well, and I'm something that I can generate an income from, something I'm passionate about, something I like to work on, and something that fits my mission, right? I have that. A lot of people, they're still unsure they have it. I know I have it.
Yeah, actually, I haven't actually thought of that much, and that's a great point, is the fulfillment point. And we had Christopher Chu on episode 5 of the podcast, and he's done drop shipping and FBA, and he mentioned that he at a certain point wasn't feeling fulfilled by that, and that's why he's now coaching people on sort of getting more freedom in their work, location independent business and all that. And yeah, I guess for me, I get a strong sense of fulfillment from the Chris the Freelancer project, what I do with this. But yeah, and that's one of the reasons why like drop shipping and other businesses like that aren't that appealing to me, because it's just a means to an end of income. And I
think it really depends what you're selling. Like, I think it really depends what you're selling, because you could sell, for example, you could, I don't know, let me try and think of something like a very good example. If you're really into cooking, right? And you really think that cooking with your family is something that brings people closer, and you really believe that people should cook their own food because it's healthier, then I think, providing people with the products they need to cook, they could be totally fulfilled by that, right?
Yeah.
The question is like are they? So I think you could still you can still do affiliate marketing, you can still do drop shipping and FBA and be passionate and be fulfilled by that. It just depends what you're selling and whether that thing that you're selling fits with what you want to bring in the world, what you believe in, and what your mission is. But very few people, I think, have a mission for themselves. Yeah. Or no, I think a lot of people have a mission for themselves. Not many people have a mission for something else than themselves, like the world.
Bigger mission, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So tell us about your company. It's about gap years, obviously.
Yeah. We're gapyears.com, and we're helping young people to make better choices about their gap years and their projects abroad. And basically, through content, we help them figure out whether or not a gap year would be appropriate for them. Yeah. And if it is, then we help them understand what kind of program is better for them. Because the typical profile is a young French speaker in Belgium, France, or Switzerland, even Canada. No, maybe not Canada, but like they want to go learn English. That's everyone agrees. Like it's very important to speak English. And also everybody agrees that it's only when you get fully into the environment that you can really master the language, right? Or even like just really improve your skills. So there's a bunch of people who they know they want to take a year to like work on their English skills, but they're not quite sure what to do. And we help them figure out what are the best programs for them and the best options between doing an au pair program, volunteering abroad, working abroad, doing an exchange within another school and just go live in a family for a year, or doing an internship abroad or backpacking. So we help them figure out through content once again, what are the options and which ones are better depending on how much money they have, what their objectives are, what they want to do after, whether they've already been at university or not, or whether they're coming out of a job or stuff like that. And ultimately, where I really believe we're going to be bringing the most value is that we are building a platform that centralizes all the different offers. So once they've figured out, okay, I want to do a volunteering program in Canada, right? They can go on our site under the directory section, and they can say, all right, I'm 22 years old, I'm from Belgium, and I want to go to Canada and do volunteering. And then they can find the possibilities and the projects, and they can compare. See the description of the project. They can see what's included in the price, and they can also see reviews from other people who've already done that program. So we're basically building the TripAdvisor of gap year programs.
I see. And the business model on that, is that commission based or? Not
really. So like right now, the way we're going to be approaching it, and we're still like at the stage of building. So we've built the site. The site is live right now. It's been a year now. We have 25,000 uniques. At the end of the month, we'll have 25,000 unique visitors on the site. We focused a lot on building the platform and getting traffic already to the site without having the directory. Yeah, right now we're still building that directory and approaching our partners. And these are the ones who are going to be financing the project. But it's not going to be commission-based, it's going to be click-based. So basically, there's going to be many projects and many programs and many pages. Like on Google, you type digital nomads, and then there's going to be like 20 pages of content. Of course, people generally don't go till page 17, right? Mm-hmm. So basically, we're giving the possibility for the organizations who want to have more visibility to basically pay in order to have that visibility. And if the users, they do show some interest and they really are quality leads, only then they pay us per click within the card of the directory.
Okay. And how has your experience been with building a startup and I guess navigating the challenges of traveling and working remotely? Because it's quite challenging in itself to build a startup. How's it been, doing that on the road?
To be honest, it's not been easy for sure. But the thing is, because I did not depend on the income from the startup, it's just that the development has been slow. It doesn't make it impossible, but it's just I spend time traveling around and I spend time, freelancing. And the result of that is that I just wouldn't spend so much time working on the startup. And now I basically decided, I was like, my focus, and because I enjoy this so much, my focus is going to be on working on this business. And that's why I'm spending 3 months here in Chiang Mai, and I was 3 months in Saigon. And I've recently decided I would only spend 20% of my time working for clients instead of 40% before. So I could really spend more time developing the startup and basically increasing the pace at which it can be financially viable, which it is not at this point in time. Right now, I'm just investing money in it, It's been a year and a half just investing money into it.
And time and everything
And
else.
time. But it's been so worth it, dude. Like, I'm learning so much stuff. I'm like really enjoying it. When I talk when I talk about it, I'm really passionate, and it's just like, and I really believe that we're bringing something amazing that's really not been done in our market, basically.
No, that's awesome that you found something that you're so passionate about. But I guess in terms of the freelancing stuff, that's just that's the stuff that's really sustaining you.
Oh yeah, it is.
And
Only.
how did you find work on the road? Was it tough? Did you use online platforms or?
So basically, I was getting up until like last October, I was getting like small client work here and there, very inconsistent. The only way I would want to get clients was through face-to-face meeting. Okay. So I would just do it naturally, like just go to work in co-working spaces and put myself out there, and just go to meetups and stuff like that. And that worked okay, but I think if you have such a strategy and you really want to have a lot of clients, I think it takes some time, to do that. Because it's not like you bumped into a new client every day when you do that, especially because I was really not aggressive in the way I was offering my services. It's not something I wanted to. I didn't want to like enter a co-working space and go shake everyone's hand and be like, hey, I'm the Facebook marketing guy. Yeah. Just nice to meet you. Just let's go work together, I didn't want to do that. Probably it could have gone faster if I would have done that, but I just didn't want to. But it really became sustainable for me financially when I started working on an ongoing basis with one of my clients and do basically like 16 hours per week. And then from that point onwards, I could say, all right, I could just, look at the numbers and be like, all right, this month I have made more money than I spent. And that's only at that point that I was like, all right, this is sustainable. I can say now I'm location independent. But before, I would have, like spikes here and there, in terms of income. But overall, if I look at the bigger picture over a 6-month period, I would spend much more than I would make. Yeah. And so that's why, I would not consider my freelancing career having multiple clients as very successful. But it's partly because I wasn't focused on it, because I was just really building the startup. I just realized that probably like around August or July last year, I was like, all right, there's not enough money coming in. I need more financial stability, and I also need like that creative energy, and I need that creative energy to be dedicated to the startup. So I figured that if I would work on an ongoing basis with a client, you don't have to reinvent the wheel every week or every month, because there are processes and you more or less do the same thing all the time. Yeah. and so I figured like I would have to make a little bit of that sacrifice, in terms of time freedom, if I wanted, and basically, say I'm going to be working 16 hours per week, and I'm not going to take 1 month of holiday if I want to. But I'll have a good environment that sustains me financially, so I can keep on building the startup, which ultimately is really I wanted to focus on. Okay.
And that client's the same one you're working with now? Yeah. And how did you find that client?
Through basically, I went to it was kind of a networking event in Brussels. It was some sort of a meetup of a group of people who all work in the travel industry, but focused on the digital side of it. And so I just went out there because I had a friend who just invited me. I was like, wow, that sounds great. I'm just going to go. And then just behaved normally there and just talk to people. And then I started talking with this guy who's today my client, and he's also my mentor for the startup. So everything is super linked. And we just became friends at first. And I was still working for the other agency and being a campaign manager. And then the guy has a business that's heavily run by advertising. So I think he had an interest in me because of that to some extent. And so just from that point onwards, we just became friends. Like I would, he's like 39 years old, and I'm clearly younger, but we would just go have a beer together and hang out at his place or my place, and then we just really became friends. And there's probably like 9 months of friendship before I started doing before I did my first consulting project with him. And only then, after I approached him, after basically I'd made that that shift, that mental shift that I have to work with someone on an ongoing basis, only then I told him, I was like, hey, how about we work together? And then he was like, yes.
Okay, so this was before you left.
No, this is whilst I was already on the road.
Okay.
Whilst I was already on the road. No, I met him before I left, whilst I was still working in the agency. Yeah. And then I basically worked with him once, doing a consulting project. When I was on the road, I was in Colombia at that time. He was in Brussels, but it's an American business. And then I came back. I was back home, and then I suggested to him, I was like, hey, how about we work together on an ongoing basis? And then we just talked a little bit. He talked with the team, and it was like, yeah, let's do it.
Do you think it's an advantage or important to find clients back home? Is that better to have clients back home that support you being location independent, or does it matter?
I think if back home is Australia, you would want to make sure you can have clients from Australia. I mean, it's from a pure financial standpoint, I think it makes a lot more sense. Like basically, and really thinking just about the financial side of it, if you're going to be offering the same service to the same kind of companies anyways, you might as well, assuming that the time difference is not too big, you might as well work with people who are in a country where the currency is high, like Australia. Yeah. Because you get paid in Aussie dollars, and that's good. As opposed to, arriving here in Chiang Mai and then trying to do business with, let's say you're doing some services, helping doing social media for any company. It's probably better for you to get your clients in Australia than find them here in Chiang Mai, because if they're Thai, and even if they're not, even if they're expats, they have access here to labor that's so much cheaper. It will make more sense for everyone, that you get your clients basically in Australia. Yeah, I didn't make my point very clear, but you got the idea, right?
Yeah, I think it's definitely, I guess for anyone listening, I think it's definitely the best idea to secure work back home first. If you live in a Western country that has a strong currency, to secure work back home and then use that to travel. A guy who's probably going to be on the podcast as well, a friend of mine, Dylan, got a web development job in Australia that was able to go remote and then just went remote. And to me, that's the most reliable way of going location independent, because it's almost like the same thing as getting a job in your home country. The only difference is you have an agreement with them that you can go remote.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay. So I would recommend that to anyone, for sure. So what sort of travel have you done? I mean, obviously travel is very important to you, and you figured pretty early on that you wanted to travel. But I guess there's a lot of slow travel at the moment for you, and you got to focus on, your mission with the business as well. And I guess moving around a lot wouldn't work quite well with that.
Yeah. The kind of travel I've done, I've done all sorts of travel. During my nomadic experience, or like generally speaking?
Yeah, generally speaking, like I think travel is an important thing to you, but then also how do you manage that with work, and where are the places you've been and enjoyed?
Maybe I focus more on the nomadic then.
Yeah.
Because I've just.
You've had a few.
No, I've done a lot of travel. I've done a lot of travel during that year in Australia, and then after that I went in Indonesia for a month. And then I was living in the UK for 3 years where I studied.
Oh wow.
So that's, to some extent, that is a way of traveling in the way that you're living abroad. So I think you find a lot of the travel elements, even though you're like in the same place for 3 years. And then I would do like trips in the summer and stuff, but nothing like significant. And then but basically I started with the nomadism. I did before I really get like heavily into building the startup on the road, I was like, okay, I know I'm gonna work a lot and I'm gonna be like fully into this thing, so I want to enjoy the last moments of freedom before I get really into this. And so I took 2 months and I traveled in Ecuador as well, and I really focused on improving my Spanish skills and improving my surfing. That was last year. And once I finished with that, then I arrived in Colombia. And when I got to Colombia, I lived there last year for 5 months. And when I arrived in Colombia, I was like, okay, now this is business time. But I was still making my way towards Medellin. So it was like, it took me probably like a month to get to Medellin. So I was still I was really like on the road and like working on on the business, and that was not easy. For sure, and everybody agrees across the board. When you're moving around, it's really hard to get anything done. And generally speaking, working in hostels or like being surrounded by backpackers. And I'm not criticizing backpackers. I am, to some extent, I am a backpacker, because I still do trips here and there. But it's generally speaking like hard to work when you're around backpackers because they don't quite understand what you're doing. They're still like living their year off or their summer vacation or whatever. And they don't get the big picture. So when you're just working and they're chilling, or they're going for a trip somewhere, and you say, I'm sorry, I'm just gonna keep on working. Like, oh man, it sucks. Come with us. Blah blah blah. And it's hard. It makes you feel like shit. You're like, no, it's true. Sorry for saying shit, but it's it's a little bit frustrating, I mean, at the end of it, I just got used to it. I was like, I don't care. I'm happy to do what I'm doing right now, But I think for a lot of people, it can be tough, because you don't really do anything fully, right? You're like not really doing the traveling fully because you see all these people doing stuff you're not going to be doing, and at the same time, like, it's really hard because you're on the road and you're doing work, but you're not fully doing some really good work because you're on the road, right?
Yeah.
So now I prefer really to be super focused on the work, and then I would take like a month off. Like that's what I did now. I took 1 month off, and like more or less like off. I traveled in Vietnam, so I bought a motorbike in Saigon, and I did like 1,700 kilometers north, and that was like, all right, now I'm not supposed to work, so I can be a backpacker now. And then
Okay, what do you, and you obviously, we're in Chiang Mai right now. Mm-hmm. What are your favorite places to work in the world?
In the world?
Yeah.
In terms of cities?
Yeah, so does Chiang Mai top the list, or?
Yeah, of course. Yeah. I think for me, like, it's really important to be surrounded with like-minded people, and for a lot of people it's the same thing. I'm not really bringing anything new here, but it's just really nice when you arrive, and the only places I've had this is Saigon and Chiang Mai so far. Okay. I was in Medellin last year. I've been working from Brussels a lot, a little bit London, Paris, Berlin, Madrid, and you go to co-working spaces and you see remote workers, you see startup founders, you see freelancers, and to some extent you have something in common with them, right? Yeah. Because of the work, but the moving around part, there's very few people who are really like moving that much, and very few people who I feel like really like identify as like location independent or nomadic people, right? Like, and the places I've seen where there's the biggest concentration of people like that is Saigon and is Chiang Mai. And so because of that, it's really nice. If you look it up, like if you really look at it, infrastructure is good in other places too, right? But what really makes a big difference is really like the people here in Saigon and Chiang Mai, and also, of course, the cost of living.
All right. Well, if you had to, and I ask this at the end of pretty much every podcast, if you had advice, I guess in the space of like, let's say 5 minutes, like what would you tell people that want to become location independent?
I think like anything, I think success is going to be dependent on how much information you have, how much knowledge you have. Mm-hmm. So I would say like educate yourself, really like what are the different possibilities. But first of all, try to really figure out, whether this is going to be something for you or not. And if you've agreed that this was going to be something for you, just figure out first whether it's really something you want to do or not. And you have to do that by consuming content, and I'm not trying to make the promotion for anyone here, really. I'm just saying, like, you should inform yourself. Just don't throw yourself out there not knowing what's going on. I mean, if you really want to give yourself the most chances, make sure you know what you're going for, and then try to figure out what the different options are. And they're probably going to fall into the categories of, am I a remote worker, or am I a freelancer that's working for clients here and there and has to find new clients on an ongoing basis, or am I an entrepreneur? But you don't have to be an entrepreneur to have income coming from an internet business, right? Just try to figure out which one is the best option for you, depending on your skill set, depending on what you know, and what you want to do. But yeah, just make sure you're informed. Make sure you're talking to people who understand what you're going for. Ask them what they think of your super plan for location independence is.
Super plan.
and yeah, probably like if you're not like really in a hurry to go do it, probably like try starting your super plan, and try and see some traction and get some income already before you leave whatever is the situation you're on, right? Yeah. Because I think I haven't met too many people who've like failed at doing the location independence thing, but I could see how a lot of people like me underestimated exactly how much time it was going to take their online business to succeed, and had to stop or had to and get back to square one. So yeah, if you can already try and do as much as you can whilst you have your job or whilst you're at university, then yeah, try to get some traction before you go fully into this super plan.
Super plan.
Super plan.
We could like make a super plan sort of thing and brand it, and because I've never heard that before.
The super plan, yeah, I never said it before neither. So it's just like
we've just invented a new thing on the podcast here, ladies and gentlemen. Yeah, I'm just gonna look that up now. Thanks so much for coming on the show, Raph.
No worries, with pleasure.
Alright guys, thanks for listening. If you want to find out more about Raphael, as well as everything else we just talked about in today's episode, you can find all of that information and more in the show notes. Just head to christhefreelancer.com/podcast/Raphael-smear. That's christhefreelancer.com/Raphael-SZMIR. As always, thanks for listening. Be sure to hit subscribe, and we hope to see you on the next episode.